Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Taoiseach, I very much welcome this opportunity to discuss these things here with you this morning. I think it's probably one of the most positive engagements I've actually had since I came into the Dáil, in the sense of the possibilities and the opportunities that are opened up and that are presented to us. And it's very clear, I think, that we are all on the same page in terms of where we need to go and what we need to do. And I want to acknowledge all of the research reports that have been done, and the NESC one that you mentioned as well. There are really good recommendations in here, really good solid work and evidence. And I tuned in this morning as well to the one on education. And again, there was really good stuff in there. Now, these will only be as valuable, of course, as the implementation of it, but I really do hear what you're saying in terms of the resources being put behind these things, and I accept your sincerity in trying to bring this forward. And one of the things I think you said this morning was around when you quoted Donegal O'Malley, you know, we will be judged in future generations about what we did for the education of our children. And it really did struck home to me. And I thought all of us here collectively, you know, too often party politics is paid with things, you know, we just need to get over it. And I hear what you're saying as well in terms of people stretching themselves. And it's only out of our comfort zones that we will really achieve the success that we need to achieve, and to achieve what Donegal O'Malley has you know, achieved through education as well. And that's being borne out now in terms of our, you know, just where we're at. That's not saying we've achieved everything, but again, the knock-on impact on wages and on productivity, particularly in line with inflation now and all of the other challenges that we have, I think that the work that is being done forms a really solid foundation for all of that. I welcome it. It'll be no surprise to you that the Belfast, no more than Niall Blaney, the Belfast-Dublin corridor is obviously important, but the Atlantic Innovation Corridor is hugely important. We know what the figures are there. We know the evidence there in terms of the regional gaps, and that needs to be addressed. And I'm very mindful as well, obviously the Western Rail Corridor fits into all that as well, the Atlantic Technological University. You know, we are almost having a perfect storm in terms of the opportunities that we have. Maybe I shouldn't call it a storm, but the Atlantic Technological University, the Atlantic Innovation Corridor, all of those things together, if they're resourced properly, they have to be more than names, then we can achieve an awful lot collectively across this island. And I certainly am excited about that. I want to just to ask you a bit about that, but I also want to ask you in terms of student mobility across the island, because you may know I'm doing a rapporteur for a report for the Education Committee on that, and the work this morning was very useful. And again, we will use parts of that as well. And I think if we, you know, we can achieve a lot that way. But just looking at the figures in terms of north-south, like we only had 1,624 students from the north attend higher education institutions in the south. And likewise, we only had 2,085 students from the south attending higher education institutions in the north. That was 1% and 3.5%. And there's good things being done by individual institutions. But as you said, we need to get beyond that to something more systematic. So is there something, you know, are you committed to increasing those numbers? Do you see a role for the Shared Island unit there? Maybe even in leading the way in terms of bursaries or scholarships there. I know there is some being done, and I welcome that in terms of the cancer research part of it for postdoctoral and doctoral students. But you know, at an entry level, say just as an undergrad level, I think we could lead the way there if we were to put some funding into that from the Shared Island unit, if we had the room to be able to manoeuvre there. And I just have to ask you about engaging with the diaspora and the votes for the diaspora abroad, and obviously the votes for people in the north as well in terms of the presidential elections. Where is that at? Thank you,
Cathaoirleach, and thanks very much, Taoiseach, for the presentation. A couple of questions. One's a very practical issue which we're coming across daily: passports. The provision of passports. Some people are coming into the office now who have been waiting 6 months, which is simply not acceptable. So there's a huge issue, and I would ask you, maybe it needs a separate meeting with the Passport Office or the Department of Foreign Affairs, but that's something I want to raise. Part of the, I know the All Ireland initiative is in terms of the greenways, and we have been, we've had one supplied in terms of one from Newry to Carlingford, and we would ask for that maybe to be enhanced. There's also, you mentioned cross-border health. There is the opportunity for Daisy Hill to be expanded and become probably the only acute hospital on the east coast there between Dublin and Belfast. So there is that opportunity, certainly. And obviously, well, okay, sorry, I'll rephrase that between Drogheda and Belfast.
Thanks for that correction, Mickey.
And we say all politics is parochial, and I accept that. Certainly, there is that opportunity.
The dog for were there. Sorry for Aaron, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Kieran.
We used to refer to, someone used to refer to the Midlands as the Balkans, between the different hospitals, competing with each other in terms and in the northeast is no different, as you know. I think, first of all, just on David Conway's points, thank you for your very positive comments. And I think, education is key, as you said, to jobs, quality of life, future engagement. And that whole idea of the Atlantic Innovation Corridor. Now, that's actually an interesting piece of research that's been we're now funding to Shared Island that was submitted from, I think, Galway and the Atlantic of the Technology University in Galway. Yeah. Around how you develop social economically in sort of peripheral areas or in regional areas. So it's going to be an interesting piece of research, and we can give you the contact for the researchers in terms of what they're proposing to identify what are the ingredients from human capital across, in say, a border region to enable economic development. And that was one of the projects that came through the application process and which was awarded through the peer review. We don't get involved in actually deciding on the merits of research projects. It's independently reviewed. But it struck me when you mentioned that there. On student mobility, we have commissioned the Higher Education Authority to conduct research this year to examine patterns, barriers to student mobility on the island, between Ireland and the United Kingdom more broadly. What's interesting is, and your figures are more or less correct, but we were with Queen's recently, and Queen's made a point to us that there's been a big jump in the number of applications from the Republic into Queen's. Now that could be the Scottish fee thing too, we don't know. It could be a factor of Brexit. So Brexit is going to impact on this. And again, they were kind of indicating particular potential problems because we have student caps in the north, which I don't understand myself. I know there's no finance minister or public expenditure minister here, but we don't have caps in the Republic. We have some caps on some of the professions. In the short term, what we can do, I know Minister Harris is engaging on, we have needs, we have needs in therapies, we have needs in medicine, and are there additionality we can say to the north, can we get additional places for students in the Republic? That would help you, perhaps, and that would help the Republic as well in terms of additionality, in terms of placements. So I think that's what we could do in the short term. We do probably need that study to look at like I was struck, did I say this to you, that was in McGee campus on the education, or the medicine programme, the postgraduate medicine programme. The students there apparently cannot get clinical placements in the Republic. So we need to, these are barriers we need to be really working on to remove, because no, they will get placements in the north potentially, but there's no reason why they shouldn't. Like clinical placements should be an all-island thing because you have different levels of hospitals, tertiary, from a paediatric to cancer to heart, and there should be, it would benefit all students, north and south, if they had the full range of access, particularly in an area like medicine, to proper clinical placements and a wide range of clinical placements. And so that's on the student mobility side. On the diaspora, that's progressing. My understanding is that the legislation for that referendum is progressing, but I can get a note for you on that. I didn't check it before I came in here today. In terms of the Ulster Canal, obviously you've been talking to Waterways Ireland. You may not have been, but he's ambitious for the higher things in life. Sorry, as in 100 million he wants straight up. No, I'm jesting with you because I had an engagement with all the North-South bodies, and I can't think of the chief executive's name, but he came with all guns blazing on anyone. Yeah, we'd given 13 million, you know, it's not a bad start. But no harm for engaging. Yeah, I think we've given 12 million for phase 2 and 1 million for phase 2. We're engaged with Waterways Ireland in terms of the phase 3. So I think the million for phase 3 was to get preparatory work done so that to come back to us in respect of that. Obviously, there's $1 billion funding there. We're trying to spread it to and get different areas covered. But look, those who make progress will gain more as well. And to be fair to Waterways Ireland, I think they have a very good track record. It's a fantastic amenity and a great tourism potential as well. So we will be working with them in relation to that. On the A5, as I said, the funding is there from our perspective, and we will fund the A5 more generally. Now, in terms of, is the border contributor part of that, or?
The southern part.
Yeah, but is it cleared, like, and all of that? I mean, through all the processes, that's what we need to, we can talk to Transport about that in relation to that. And the rail review covers all areas. I note that Deputy Walsh got in the Western Rail Corridor, along with all our colleagues from the West, have made that very clear to us as well, and it is covered by the rail review. The issue in some of all this will be delivery, you know. So I think there has to be realism at some stage that we can do. And that's why I mentioned, I won't say it again, but one corridor that could readily be done quickly, potentially. Like the Minister tells me that a lot of rail projects, because of all sorts of inquiry you have to go through and planning and so on, that takes much longer actually than non-public transport. So that's the only inhibitor. Yeah, passports. That's 6 months. It seems a bit long. There's down to, I think they're down to maybe they're down to 30 weeks now, from 35. And the problem is actually applications have mushroomed, like they've just gone through the roof. I think they'll do about 1.7. I think I heard the Minister say this year, million.
And renewals are within
renewals.
a very short period of time,
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, so we're very conscious of the passports.
If I may say that our time is more or less up.
Could I just finally say to everybody, because you mentioned the Greenway, if you yourselves have projects or ideas, let us know.
Of course we will.
So that we can progress them in a programmatic way. We're anxious to do greenways, and there's going to be a map of all island greenways will be produced shortly by the Department of Transport. The idea being then, the next question is how do we connect up all the greenways over time, and there'll be a 10-year plan. So there's existing greenways everywhere. So the next question then is on an all-island basis, how do we connect them all up? So
Teacher, can I just say, Teacher, can I thank you?
I'll have you walking for Ireland shortly.